Welcome to another lecture, guys. In this lecture we are going to learn how we can add rigid body to our 3D objects and how it reacts to it, and what are different kind of settings that are available inside rigid body to manipulate, and how we can use it for our ease. Let's select our cube and go to the inspector panel, and in here click on the add component. Here we are going to type rigid body, and you will notice that two kind of rigid bodies appear over here. We have rigid body component and we have a rigid body 2D component. As the name specifies, this one is for 3D objects and this one is specifically for 2D objects. As our cube is a 3D object, we are going to add this one into our components list. Let's click on it and it will add it to it. Now let's move it a bit so we can see all the settings available to us. The first thing we have over here is mass, and it's been set to 1. Next thing we have is drag, and it's the linear drag coefficient. 0 means that there is no damping, and we can change this value up to infinity. The next thing we have is angular drag coefficient. 0 means there is no damping and the maximum value can be anything. Similarly, we have a checkbox that allows us to use gravity or not. Then we have another checkbox for making it kinematic or not. Then we have interpolate, which is currently set to none. If we click on this drop down, we will see that it has an interpolate value and an extrapolate. Next we have collision detection, and it's been set to discrete. The other two values are continuous and continuous dynamic. Then we have constraint, which has freeze position and freeze rotation checkboxes. We can freeze an X, Y or Z position of our cube. We can also freeze the rotation X, Y or Z of our cube. Next, you are going to notice as soon as we play this scene, our cube will start to move downwards, and as it appears as the gravity is being applied to it. So any game object being added this rigid body component will start to react to the gravity of this virtual world. Rigid body also has a scripting API which provides us with a bunch of different public methods, and with these methods we can apply force of different kind, and we can also apply torque, and we can change different settings via code. The first method we have is add explosion force. It applies a force to a rigid body that simulates explosion effects. Next we have add force, and it adds a force to the rigid body. Then we have an add force at position. It applies force at position. As a result, this will apply a torque and the force on the object. Then we have add relative force. It adds a force to the rigid body but relative to its coordinate system. Then we have similar add relative torque function. Then we have add torque function, which just adds the torque to the rigid body. Then we have closest point on bounds. Then we have get point velocity to return the velocity of a rigid body at any given point in the global space. Then we have get relative point velocity, so we get the value of velocity relative to a point. Then we can check if our rigid body is slipping. Then we have move to position function available to us, and we have a move to rotation function available to us. Then we can reset the center of mass. We can also reset the inertia tensor value and rotation. Then we have a set density method. Then we have sleep, sweep test all, and then we have a wake up method available to us that helps us force the rigid body to wake up.